Hello, I'm Jack Cox, author of Love Not Fear, and I'm here with my usual co-host, Paul Simon Smith, who runs the Nutrient Nirvana Supplement Company, and jolly good supplements they are too. So you've got the Boiler Man in.
Told you not to mention that. Yeah. My boiler's broke. My phone's on the blink.
We've got to warn people now. There might be a little Boiler Man running behind Paul later on in the show.
Quite possibly, yeah. So it's a bit annoying, yeah. But my boiler's broke today, and my phone's on the blink as well. So it's been one of those days where you think, "Why me?" But there we are.
I've been rushing because I'm going away tomorrow. I'm going to Glastonbury for a couple of weeks, which I'm really looking forward to. But I've had a few things I had to get done today first before I could go. So I've only just got in and got myself sorted and done your slides for later on. And a little bit ahead of breath because I've really been rushing. Right, I've got a little funny story to tell.
Good.
It's not really all that funny. And before I start, I just want to say, for your sake, Paul, it's got nothing to do with anybody we know. So don't be putting two and two together and making 45 and a half. It's something that happened many, many years ago. But anyway, I was having a disastrous relationship with somebody long time ago. And I remember singing to her at the karaoke, because I used to do karaoke. I used to be that mad. I used to do karaoke. I sung Purple Rain to her.
Oh, brilliant song. Love Prince.
Yeah, the Prince song. Well, last night I just happened to come across it. I wasn't looking for it. It just popped up on YouTube when I was searching for something else, and I decided to have a listen to it. And then I listened to another version of it because I got interested. And then I refreshed my mind about what the story actually meant. Purple Rain alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it's an apocalyptic thing. It's the end of the thing when there's blood in the sky. Mm-hmm. So the red and the blue are mixing to make Purple Rain. Mm. And he wanted to see the love of his life dancing at the end of the world. So fair enough. Anyway, I didn't think much more about it. And I went to bed, I went to sleep. And this lady, and I won't mention her name because there are some people who might be on here that might know her. She used to drive a very rare car, which hasn't been made for 10, 15 years now. And this morning, on my walk, I just happened to see one. I haven't seen one in years. So is the universe trying to poke me in the ribs and just remind me the lessons you learnt then, Jack, don't forget them.
Synchronism, I think, is the word, isn't it? Synchronism.
Yeah,
or like all these synchronicities, yeah.
So
and when you're open
to... let me just put the chat on, because I haven't got the chat on.
When you're open to that, you experience that a lot more, I find.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So has anybody else on here experienced anything similar?
It's a bit like when we look at the clock and we see 1:11 or 9:11 or these certain times that flash up and we see them all the time. It's kind of similar to that.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's. I think the universe has got, or God, if you want to call it that, has got a way of just poking us in the ribs and reminding us about stuff that we've half forgotten, you know.
Mm.
Uh,
It's getting crazier and crazier, and I suppose that means really that we've got to get our own kind of view of the world, the way we want to see it, up and running as quickly as possible now.
well, I've been saying that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, but
Been saying that for 4 or 5 years since I wrote my book. Well, I didn't, did I? I didn't. Hands up. I'm sorry, I didn't. When I wrote the book, I said we've got 30 or 40 years to sort this out. Now I'm saying, no, we haven't.
no, it's going to be a lot quicker than that.
This is why I'm setting up a community garden here in Stafford with some people. It's why I'm helping and supporting other people in their community gardens. The first line of the first order of business has to be to feed the community.
Yeah, I think if I had
alternative culture.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if I had a lot of money, which I don't, then I'd probably be moving to some very remote area like the Orkney Islands or somewhere like that, just to try and escape what's coming down the pike.
Well, I think Puerto Rico is one of the best places at the moment.
Mexico's supposed to be pretty good as well, isn't it? Where Marion went to, Marion Bevington. That's supposed to be very kind of relaxed when it comes to all this sort of stuff, and they don't,
Yeah, I mean, the regulations to get into the country are very relaxed. But there's still masks everywhere, apparently.
They're very strict on that, but not on the on that stuff so much. That's what I've been told anyway. So
it depends which state you go to. Marion went to Quantum Roo, which is right down the south. No, it's not. It's right at the north. Sorry. And they're still strict on masks there, but some states they're not strict on masks at all.
Just had a new comment come in from Jason Easterling. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
I'll read it out. It says, "Things have to fall apart. We all acquiesced. Stay in your sovereignty. Stay grounded and connected to your intuition, and stay strong." Certainly will do, mate. I'll be staying strong. They can I'll be staying strong. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Intuition is very important. I spoke to a lady yesterday on YouTube called Ilona Woods. Well, I haven't uploaded it yet, actually, but it'll be going up this week. And she's she's very, very well versed in magic, tarot, shadow work, and all that sort of stuff that we've both been looking into, Jack. And she was saying how important it is to develop your intuition throughout all this. You can't possibly know everything. I mean, it amazes me that people are able to keep up with it all now. To a certain extent, I've kind of tuned out of it all now. I know enough to know, you know what I mean? I know enough to know that what we're told about the world is rubbish. The people that run the world are very, very bad. I know all that now, so I don't need to know everything. I tend to trust my gut a lot more on things now. And if you've been awake like me and Jack have for a long time, then that is something that you develop, isn't it? You develop your gut instinct and your intuition to these sort of things, and you can generally tell what's legitimate and what isn't.
I think I'm just becoming a skeptic. I've developed a huge level of skepticism in recent years. I don't believe anything anybody tells me anymore until I've done quite a bit of research into it.
The trouble there, Jack,
coming out of the woodwork that even I wouldn't have imagined.
The trouble with that, Jack, is I mean, obviously, I think the viewers know that you're retired now. I know you've got your group and your project with a community garden on the go, and you are, generally speaking, a very busy person. But for the average person that works, some of them are now working 2 jobs, mother and father both work, they don't have as much time or energy to come to that, to research
No, that's true.
as much as you need to keep on top of all this stuff. And that's quite a significant problem as well, I would say. People just don't have the time or the energy, your average, people. So that's why I think it's really important to develop your intuition with stuff like this. There is stuff out there that's this misinformation or disinformation on our side of the fence. The government
There
have
is lots of it.
deliberately
Yeah, lots of it.
polluted the all the information out there. But it's important to develop your intuition.
So how would you advise people to do that, Paul?
It's a personal journey, I mean, just listen to yourself. Normally your first reaction to something is the correct one. I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10. So just listen to that part of yourself a lot more. That's all I can really say. I think it's a personal thing with your own intuition and skills on that front. But I would just say listen to yourself a lot more, and normally, very often, your gut reaction, your first reaction, is the right one. It's it's there for a reason. Our intuition.
That's right. We've got all these different voices in our heads, and one of those voices is intuition.
Mm.
And the other one is the fears of the ego. And most people can't tell them apart.
Mm. Mm.
Even spiritually advanced people find it very difficult to tell those voices apart.
Mm.
Are you coming from fear? Or are you coming from love?
Mm.
If you're being told to avoid anybody, to hate anybody, then I think you're coming from fear. And that includes if you want to avoid people who've had the jab because of this.
Mm. Well, again, this is why I zoned out, not completely, but I zoned out a lot from social media over the last couple of years, because it's just, you can end up, no matter what you know and how much you know, you can still end up in that state of fear if you're surrounded by it. If you're on your phones looking at different bits and pieces all the time, you can end up in that state of mind anyway. You sent yourself there. So I think it's really important at the moment that we do try and keep on top of things as much as possible, but we've got to kind of look after ourselves as well. And I mean, most of us work still, and that can be a stressful part of having a family. Can be stressful. Paying the bills can be stressful. All this stuff on top of that can be too much for a lot of people. I know a lot of people personally that started to question things, and not long after they started to do that, they ran screaming back to the Matrix. No, I can't deal with that. I can't go there. So I'm going to switch that off now, and I'm going back to me TV and me breakfast cereal or whatever, And that's
Well,
very
I've got a very special friend who I've known for a number of years. And we almost fell out. Fortunately, we didn't. I mean, we go back 10 years or more, so it's nobody you know. And we nearly fell out at the start of the CVBS. She just wasn't prepared, and she still isn't prepared to face any of it. She won't come on these shows. What's these shows that we put out? Because she's scared we're going to talk about conspiracy theories. And she just doesn't want to know. She's had a lot to deal with in her life. I won't go into details publicly, even though you don't know who she is. But she's had a lot to deal with in her life, and she just can't cope with anything more.
I could totally understand that as well. I can totally understand. I think it takes. I'm not saying that we're special. I'm not saying that, but it does take a certain amount of strength of character to be able to. I mean, I've been in this world now for 15 years. In terms of knowing how it all works. So it does take a certain amount of strength to remain in that mindset.
So what woke you up, Paul, 15 years ago?
I, as I remember it, it seems like another lifetime ago now.
Iraq War?
No, excuse me. It was actually me. It was the internet, really. I mean, before I started using the internet, I'd read books on the JFK assassination and books by people like Jim Mars on space and aliens and things like that I'd always been interested in as a kid. I'd always been interested in the supernatural and the unexplained and things like that. So I'm kind of that way orientated anyway.
Mm.
But then I started checking out. There was on YouTube. They're still on there. There's a very popular radio show in America called Coast to Coast AM. I don't know if
No,
you've
I've
ever
heard
come
of it,
across
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mm.
And so I listened to a guy called George Norrie, who's a lovely guy, and he interviewed guests every week, and every now and again they'd be on UFO subjects, aliens, whatever, Area 51, all that malarkey. But then one week he had a guest on called Alex Jones. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing now that everyone probably that's watching this knows who Alex Jones is
Alex
now. But at the
Jones.
time, he was working out of his basement or something like that. This was early days, Alex Jones, and he shouted. That's all he did. He just shouted. He's very
He's got
passionate.
one of those voices, hasn't he?
Yeah, very loud, powerful. I'm glad you love George Norrie, Heidi. Yeah, we're in the same club there, definitely. I don't listen to it as much as I used to, but back in the day, about sort of 15 years ago, literally every night I'd listen to Coast because it was always interesting. Sometimes it was a bit silly but a lot of the time I found out a lot of stuff early on through Coast to Coast. Then I found Alex Jones, went over to Prison Planet, which was his channel, got very addicted to that. Learned an awful lot through Alex Jones, and he gets a lot of bad publicity because I think he's so strong with his opinions, and he's very forthright, and he doesn't mix his words at all. He's just raw, and that rubs a lot of people up the wrong way. A lot of people don't like that. He went on to it's probably on YouTube. Who's that guy that owned Piers Morgan? He went on to the Piers Morgan show and annihilated him on gun control rights in America. You could see the blood draining from Morgan's face, and Jones was, and evidently Alex Jones had the flu as well, really bad flu, and he still had like that sort of Brian Blessed. It's that kind of energy, It was just incredible to watch, and but he didn't just shout him down. All the points he was making about gun control. 25 years ago, I would have said guns are bad. Get rid of all guns in America. Just let the police and the army have them.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
Exactly. But I was a liberal. I was brought up by socialist Marxists, really. I was brought up by people like that. So I love them to death still. But you just think, oh, all guns are bad. They kill people. They're bad. But there's a reason why people have the right to bear arms. It's number one, as I think it was Benjamin Franklin said, is to protect yourself from tyranny, from a government. And this happens all over the world. And I would argue that it's happening now in America. It definitely is happening in America. So those rights are there for a very, very profound reason. So anyway,
look what's happened to us since we gave up our guns.
Sorry, Jack.
Look what's happened to us here in Britain since we gave up our guns.
Exactly.
The police are completely out of control.
I mean, a terrible, terrible example or scenario would be, imagine walking into your house, coming home from work and finding your wife being assaulted by a burglar or robber or whatever, as you say in America, and the robber's armed, he's got a gun. What are you going to do? I know what I would do if I had the right to bear arms, and that's just a no-brainer. What are you going to do if he's got a gun? What are you going to do? You're going to just allow him to shoot you? You're going to stand there, 911, phone the police, wait. Well, you're going to get.
What I've always said, Paul. This is what I've always said. If you bring out a law against bearing arms, who's going to obey that law? Law-abiding citizens. Who's going to totally disregard that law? All the criminals.
Exactly.
All you're doing
Exactly.
is making the law-abiding citizens defenseless against the criminals.
Precisely, mate. Totally agree. We're on the same page there. I think there's a lot to be said for the libertarian movement, isn't there? It gets a lot of bad press in America, but I don't have a problem with libertarians. I think, you know, that's. I'd love to go back to living, I suppose, in a republic rather than a democracy. I think a republic is better if you've got a really strong constitution. That's all you need. That's all you need. Good evening, Jackie.
We don't need a monarchy, do we?
Nah, especially not our lot. The Saxe Coburg Gophers is their real
Hello,
name.
Jackie.
Hello, Jackie. Thanks for joining us. Sorry for me shouting. It's the Alex Jones in me. I can't help it.
Right. So what I want to do this week, Paul, if you're in agreement with it,
Yep.
because I've got a little light-hearted, well, not that light-hearted, but an upbeat thing to do at the end.
Good. There was one more story that I wanted to cover.
My story and your story. But today, I'd like you to do both your stories because they're both fairly dark.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can do my lighter story at the end.
Yeah, sure, mate. Sure. So we've covered.
So you also wanted to talk about paedophilia, didn't you?
I'm afraid so. There's a very good reason for wanting to talk about it. I think you've got a couple of slides there, haven't you, Jack? Nothing horrible to look at, particularly.
Well, they're not particularly nice.
No, they're not nice either, but they're not anything to worry about.
So
David Icke is very interesting as well, Heidi. I agree with you there.
I mean, although there's nothing particularly, it just doesn't look right to me.
Mm.
It just doesn't look right to me.
It's all right. So let me walk you through this. So this is a theatre production. It's a theatre show that's been touring all around the country. It's still on the go at the moment. It's called The Family Sex Show, and it's described as an alternative to porn, and it's aimed at children of 5 years and over. And the show includes full frontal nudity and stories about sexual pleasure based on the performer's own sexual experiences. Words like clitoris, cum, blowjob, and anal are all mentioned and sung about in this show, which is aimed at 5-year-olds and is called The Family Sex Show and is currently touring the country as we speak. That's all I really have to say about that, because I think I might need to go and be sick. It's just, you could not make this stuff up. You couldn't make it up. It's going on. I think this has made the mainstream now in the last sort of, I know, Jackie, oh my God. It's made the mainstream over the last sort of 12 hours, but it's been touring for a while and it's continuing to tour. So the mainstream probably knew about it and just left it alone because it's all part of the agenda, isn't it? To sexualize young children. We had a conversation about this last week, Jack, on last week's show. And from my point of view, the way I think, I don't want sex taught in schools at all. It's not a subject that should be taught to children by teachers in a school, in an institution. It should be taught by parents and families. That's how it should be. Once you open the door, in my opinion, once you open the door to it being taught in primary school, you've set the precedent. You've opened the door. Then it's going to be taught in primary school and then infant school. To third graders, I think they're called in America or whatever. It's just, and it's, they're licking their lips, the people that run this world, because we know they all love it. And we can't allow this to happen. We can't allow this to continue. We've got to be a lot more vocal on this subject because, if this carries on for another 15, 20 years, there's going to be a whole generation of extremely damaged, traumatized, sexualized young adults walking around.
Yeah. Well, I just want to ask, why would any normal person, why would any non-paedophile want to talk to a pre-puberty child about sex? They wouldn't, would they?
Mm.
The only reason for doing it is that you're grooming them for sex. You're trying to normalize sex in their minds at an age when they shouldn't know anything about sex, when they don't want to know anything about sex.
Absolutely.
If
But
they
it's
want
also
to know, they'll ask.
normalizing the idea of it being okay to, I don't know, talk to kids about some extremely gratuitous stuff, sexually speaking. You know, it's putting that idea out there into society, and it's normalizing it, and that's the most disturbing thing from my point of view. Is it's normalizing children of 5 years of age knowing about these things that we've mentioned that I won't mention again. It's just it's beyond insidious, isn't it? It's just beyond that now. It's
Well, they're even teaching young children about masturbation.
mm,
Tiny, tiny tots.
mm,
I mean, it's sick.
mm. And they, as I said before, they made such a big thing about the Jimmy Savile scandal after he died. They made such a big thing about that in the press, and I think that was just, to be honest, I think that was just the beginning of it. It was just to begin the normalization of that idea, because they said, oh, it's all historical. It was all teenage girls. It all went on in those days. You know, it was a lot more acceptable in those days. And they were just trying to kind of normalize it, I think, in my opinion, when they broke that story. And as we can see now, since then, there's clearly an agenda going on. Clearly an agenda going on.
Well, it's connected in with Satanism, isn't it?
It's definitely, yep, absolutely, absolutely.
These people are in positions now, high up in government and high up in the institution, in the educational institution, and various other institutions, and they're running the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether you heard, but David Icke was talking about this yesterday or the day before on his Iconic show, as to why paedophilia is so important in Satanism. That's why it's so necessary for them
To do with energy, isn't it?
to take energy from the young children.
Mm.
It's not just for sexual pleasure. It goes much deeper than that.
Mm.
It's a way of drawing the child's energy.
Mm.
I don't like to use it because it's been misused in so many times in recent years. But the word is vampire. To take that energy from.
Mm.
I mean, the original meaning had nothing to do with Dracula and all that nonsense. It's
Mm.
taking somebody's energy.
Yeah. And of course, they sometimes go one step further than that and turn it into adrenochrome, don't they? Which we all know about.
They do. And there's a huge amount of energy that is released from a body at the moment of death. And that's what the ritual sacrifice is all about.
And especially if it's a traumatic death as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about harvesting the energy. Now, I can't prove any of this, but it's what I have come to believe. And you're welcome to believe whatever you like, everybody. I'm not here to dictate to you what you should believe. But I haven't come to believe it lightly. And it's a very frightening world. And the reason that, one of the reasons I think that these paedophiles are given the top jobs is so that if they don't toe the line, they can be blackmailed.
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
I
We
mean,
just had a comment.
Look at Theresa May. She was Home Secretary. She had the list of all the parliamentary paedophiles. She wanted to take over as leader of the party after Cameron. And I believe, I can't prove it, that they said to her, okay, we'll make you leader of the party and you can be prime minister if you lose this. And she lost that list.
And plus, I believe as well, the higher up you go in government, the more likely it is that you're one of them anyway.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
We've had 3 good comments from Jackie Yeva Grana. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Probably not, and I
My
apologise.
friend Jackie from Birmingham, yeah.
Wow, Birmingham. Oh my God, that was the first one. The other 3 are slightly more detailed than that.
Yeah,
So the next one should be that in Wales they've brought it into schools. Are you talking about sex education for like kids of 5, 6 years of age, or are you talking about that show we were talking about, that theatre production?
I think
Let
she's
us know,
talking about.
Jackie.
I think she's talking about the sex education.
Yeah, then she said, yeah, I agree. They are normalising things they don't need to know about. Yeah, they're deliberate. That's just sexualising young kids, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And personally, her own feeling is I'd string up the pedos in whatever form they come. Definitely, yeah, yeah. I
I'll
could
hold the
probably,
end of the note for you, Jackie.
yeah. Let's not go there. Let's not go down that road. We could be there all day thinking about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, there are two different things going on. We must be honest. There are two different things going on. There's a sexual preference, and you can't blame anybody for having a sexual preference towards children. But when you act on it, the difference is when you act on it. You can
Well,
say, I fancy little kids, but I know it's wrong. I'm not going to do it. In which case, loads of respect to you. You can't be blamed for that. But if you actually go and do it and touch one, then that's the end of it as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to know
the
you.
people, the so-called people that are behind this agenda are putting out that idea that they can't help it. They were born like it. And I'm not so sure about that. How can you prove that? They can't prove it scientifically. They can't prove that. So I'm personally, I'm not so sure about that.
That's rubbish. You can't help what you want to do, but you can help what you do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm not convinced these people are born like it. I'm not
Well, I think
convinced of
some
that at
are.
all.
I mean,
We don't know, Jack. That's the point I'm making.
I can put my own personal experience to this because for most of my life, not so much now because there's nobody left. But I had a sexual preference for older women. So I don't see how that's any different for having a sexual preference to younger ones.
Younger women, you mean?
Well, younger females.
Yeah. I think if I was attracted to older women, that would be one thing. That's like kind of what they call it, intergenerational sex or whatever. But that would still be, I don't know, better, I suppose, than what we were talking about previously. And I'm not convinced at all that people are born like that. I'm just not convinced. I think it's something that is you develop, and the fact that it ties in, as you said, Jack, as it ties in with Satanism. I think that particular type of activity, sexual activity, is on the same level, the same bar, if you like. It is. I mean, I've got just a quick story for you. I've got a personal experience of this because for a year, just over a year, I worked with some of the most dangerous child sex offenders in the country. It was a very, very challenging experience. I only lasted a year in the job because it was just too much in the end. But one of the things I had to do was I had to read all their case histories, the kids that I were looking after. And all of them had been, not all of them, every single one had been abused in their family by their family members. And they'd been abused as young kids and they then acted it out themselves. It repeats itself.
Well,
It's a cycle. So whether that can be resolved with some sort of, I don't know, psychotherapy, whatever, I'm not sure. But I'm not so sure that they're born like it. Anyway, mate, let's change the subject because that's enough of that for one episode, I think. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's something we do need to keep an eye on, because they are trying to normalise it. That's the disturbing thing. They're trying to normalise it.
Right. Well, let me just talk about sound healing, because
Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
that'll brighten the mood a little bit, won't it?
Yes, hopefully.
No, sorry, I'll just press the wrong button. Hang on. Don't rush yourselves. So we've only got 10 minutes left of the show, so I'm just going to deal with this very, very quickly, and deal with it in more depth next week. And I'll be in Glastonbury next week, and I've plenty of time to research it further. It's something we used to teach when I had my distance learning school. We used to teach all this stuff, so I know a little bit about it. But I really need to brush up because it's been a long time. There we go. Let's just talk about this for a little bit. So I put that up so you can't see I'm reading my notes. Talk amongst yourselves for a second while I find my notes. Where have I put them? I'll say it's been a crazy day and I haven't really had time to research it properly. But I just wanted to say that in our mythology teaches us that in the beginning there was the Word. Now you can take that on many different levels. You can say that it was some kind of sound. Hang on. What am I doing here? All right, you can say it was. So I just took you off because I saw that you left. I put you back on.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's right. What are you eating?
No, I'm not telling you because I run a health company.
Right.
I've not had my dinner and I'm starving. Sorry.
Right. Well, I can't see how to get you back now. Never mind. I'll put the slide back on and then I'll have to watch you eat. Yeah, what does it mean? In the beginning, there was the Word. The Word is a sound. And sound is not like an electromagnetic vibration. It's a vibration, but it's a vibration that travels through air or through solid matter. So we're certainly not talking about the birth of the universe, unless you can conceive, and it's certainly possible to conceive, that back at the time just before the Big Bang, when everything was compressed into the size of a pinhead, that it's possible that a sound could have passed through that. But normally sound wouldn't travel through through space. But I just want to put that in there anyway, just something to think about. If you believe, as a lot of people do, and I've got an open mind about this, I'm not saying one way or the other, that the Earth was terraformed by an extraterrestrial species, that it could refer to that. They could have come down in their ships and sent sound waves to terraform the planet. Maybe that's what it refers to. But anyway, that's still speculation. The sounds are bombarding us all the time, affecting our health and well-being in different ways to heal us, to transform us, and to change our consciousness. The way we perceive reality shifts and changes depending on the different sound frequencies we are exposed to. Don't forget that both Tesla and Einstein said that everything was frequency. The first principle is the concept of resonance. Resonance is when a sound frequency causes an object to vibrate at the same frequency. Think of two tuning forks. Humans can hear sounds between it depends on the individual and the age of the individual, between about 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. The lowest note on the piano is 27.5 hertz, a normal piano, and the highest one is 4,186 hertz. But I think we can probably, that's just hearing. Sounds can enter our bodies through the skin, through the bones, through the tissues. So I think we can probably be affected by sound frequencies outside of that range. This will change the organization of the tissues, the organization of the DNA, and the organization of the brain. These vibration technologies are being used all over the world now. They're being tested in the mainstream and showing very good results. But there's nothing new here. Sound therapy has been practiced for thousands of years, and it's an important part of the Vedic tradition. Sound changes the health and the function of the brain. Look into the effects of sound on water. It's often said that we're 80% water, although the actual percentage varies considerably between individuals, can be as low as 60%. Nevertheless, the way sound affects water, it's certain that it also affects us. And sound can have a great influence on the quality of our creative potential. So as well as healing dis-ease, sound waves, sound frequencies can be used to improve our lives in so many different ways. The chart that I've put up just shows 10 of the most common frequencies that are used. 174 hertz to remove pain, 285 to influence the energy field, 396 to liberate you from fear and guilt, 417 facilitates change in accordance with whatever you're meditating on at the time. 432 is known as the miracle tone of nature. 528 is probably one of the most famous ones that people know about because it repairs DNA. 639 heals relationships. I'll have to try that one. Maybe not. 741 awakens intuition. 852 attracts your soul tribe. And 963 connects with light and spirit. There's another very important one that's not on that chart, which I shall mention, and that's a very, very ultra low frequency of 0.01 hertz. I think it's 01 or is it 0.1? I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out for next week. Which helps with aligning the heart and the brain. Because as most of you know, the heart has its own brain. We have neurons in the heart as well as neurons in the brain. And this isn't such a strange idea because simple organisms such as earthworms don't have brains at all. But it doesn't mean they don't think. Their neural networks are spread throughout their body, evenly throughout their body. So it's quite you don't have to have a brain to think. It doesn't have to all be stuck in one place at the top of your head anyway. So really that's all we've got time to go into today. I'm going to try to do something a bit more for next week. So if anyone's got any questions on that, I'd love to hear from you. Knowledge is powerful. Thank you both. You're very welcome, Heidi. Now, how am I going to get Paul back on here? No, that's just Paul. How am I going to get the both of us back on? Oh, dear. Hang on.
That'll do.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll do. I quite
So
like
what did
that.
you make? What did you make of that, mate?
Well, it reminded me a lot of Egypt and the pyramids and temples in Egypt as well, which were, you've probably seen this for yourself, Jack, and probably some of the viewers have, but a lot of their temples had remarkable angles, the way that the walls joined with each other.
Yeah.
And it said that that was to protect the structures from earthquakes.
Okay.
But the acoustics in these temples are incredible,
Mm.
and in the Great Pyramid as well. You know, the acoustics and the resonance are just incredible. And I think, and Maria Wheatley as well, who I spoke to, would say that I think that the stones at Avebury and at Stonehenge, well, particularly at Avebury, had healing abilities, and
Yes.
that was all part of the sound, if you like. Did I tell you this story quickly? It's a very quick story about what she told me about the Stones singing at Avebury, because this is very much
Yeah.
what you were talking
Tell
about.
that story, Paul. Yeah. Tell that story.
Yes. So Maria Wheatley, she's a very famous archaeologist in this country and does a lot of work at Stonehenge and Avebury. And about 25 years ago, she took a party of school children to Avebury to look at the stones. It's the biggest stone circle in the world, I think, or definitely in Europe. So anyway, she was with the kids and she got called away briefly by somebody. And about 5 minutes later, there was a huge storm, very dramatic storm, lots of lightning and stuff. And the kids all came running up to her and they said, Maria, Maria, the stones are singing. And she was like, oh my God, what? So she went off with the kids to these stones in the circle. And sure enough, she could hear these stones. They were like emitting a kind of a woof, 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 kind of a noise, kind of a vibration, if you like. And she says she's probably been there 500 times since, and it's never happened. She's been there during a storm. It's never happened since, which is really frustrating. But so yeah, it's quite possible, I think, that there's something going on with these ancient structures and sound, and also healing as well. So
Yeah.
that was my first thought.
I mean, what I was saying just now about resonance, it's quite possible that the stones would resonate with the sound of the thunder,
Mm, mm.
and maybe they were constructed in such a way as to do that.
Possibly, but she was very specific about the sound that the stones emitted at the time, and you could be right. Who knows? Who knows?
Like
The other thing,
like the example I gave in my little talk about two tuning forks.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
The noise of the thunder making the stones
mm.
vibrate at the same frequency. They're talking about the Great Pyramid. I've got an interesting story to tell you about that. Not a personal one. Unfortunately, I'd love to see it. I've never actually been to Egypt. One of the few places I've not been to. Graham Hancock, whose name I couldn't remember the other week.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Brilliant guy. He actually spent the night in the pyramid. He bribed somebody to allow him to do it.
On his own, or
On his own.
Mhm.
And he spent the night in what they euphemistically call the king's sarcophagus.
Yeah.
There's this huge stone box with no lid, just about big enough to put a person in, which is why they thought it was a sarcophagus. I can't pronounce it.
Sarcophagus. No,
Yeah,
that's not the
one
right
of them
word.
at all. One of
Yeah.
them is. And they never found a mummy in it or anything. So, we've just called it the king's sarcophagus. Yeah, one of them things. He spent the night in it. And he said it was an initiation. People were put in that for an initiation.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see
and
that.
the vibrations he felt in that at night
Hmm.
it just took him to a whole different level. I'll have to reread that story again and pick up on some of the
It
nuances of it.
it
But
it would
that's
have
all I.
been extremely. It would have been extremely dark in there. Obviously, it would have been pitch black. You wouldn't be able to see a thing at all. I
No,
find that very. So I saw something recently where they were talking about prisoners that are isolated in prison for being very bad boys or whatever.
yeah,
And it's a very common thing where they, after a few minutes of being in isolation at night, pitch black, you cannot see anything at all. You start seeing these symbols, and these symbols are always the same shapes. They're always like a cross, like a Christian cross, or a pyramid shape. Um, a swastika shape is very common as well, believe it or not. All these very ancient symbols start turning up out of nowhere. The idea is that it might be something to do with our brains, the cerebral. Oh, I can't think of the right vortex. I can't think of the right word, but a very kind of old part of our brain evidently produces these kind of images, so it doesn't completely like wind up and stop working because of the constant darkness. So that's a possible theory.
that's a
But
possible theory.
the initiation idea, I think, is a very very interesting one. I mean, it might not have been designed for that purpose, but I think that a lot of these ancient monuments were multi-purpose.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most likely explanation. There was lots of different reasons why they were built, and I do really like that idea of initiation, Jack. I think that's a really good one.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think we're running out of time. We've gone slightly over.
Can I just
Uh,
say one last thing? One last
yeah.
thing quickly about that is that nowadays you've probably seen this yourself. People are going to sound baths and gong baths. They're becoming
Yeah.
more and more popular, and that is all to do with sound healing. So maybe we're going full circle. Maybe we're going back to to healing ourselves with sound.
Well, like I said, it's been going on. It's very much in Vedic tradition. It's very much, I believe, in the Egyptian tradition as well. It's very, very ancient. And I think it's a brilliant thing that it's being rediscovered
Mm, mm,
because it is a very, very powerful modality.
mm.
Where everybody goes wrong, I hate to say that, it makes me sound clever, which I'm not. I'm not trying to sound the big I am. I've got all the answers. But a lot of people do sound therapy with headphones on, which means that all they're getting is the sound in through their ears. But the sound has to enter all the way through the body. It
Mm,
needs to resonate through all the tissues.
mm. Have you heard of a Rife machine?
Have I heard of?
A Rife machine.
Yes, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
That's pretty much what you're talking about, mate. Basically, it picks up
Okay.
on. I think that's how it works anyway. I'd have to look up on it now because I've got a friend who's got one. I've never used one myself, but it's all going back to that kind of sound healing idea. There's definitely something going on there. The ancient Egyptians certainly thought so, anyway.
Well, I'll be away next week. I'm going away tomorrow. I'll have the whole house to myself for 2 weeks, so I can have the music as loud as I like. And yeah, I'm going to be really immersing myself in sound.
Oh, nice, good. Yeah, I've
That's
never asked you
part
about
of the
music
plan.
before. I've never
Sorry?
asked you about. I've never asked you about music before and what you like listening to.
Well, I came across something. I mean, I like all kinds of music. I came across something yesterday that a friend sent me, which was a particular. I'll put the link to it below because it's absolutely brilliant. Um, it was just a woman making sounds with her voice, not words, just making healing sounds with her voice. And it really helped me calmed me down and made me feel good inside. And I sent it to another friend who's not feeling very well at the moment. And I'm going to put it below so we can all benefit from it. Because yeah, it's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd like to see that.
And part of the research I started to do for this talk, although I didn't really have time to include it, is that apparently we can all learn to do this. Now, I was taught at school that I couldn't sing. Probably because my voice broke before it should have done, because I was a big lad. And I could no longer get high notes. And I was demonized in choir practice. I was told to stand at the back and mime. That just put this thing in my head that I can't sing. But this guy was saying that everybody can learn to make these sounds. And again, it's very intuitive. You know, you can't learn the particular sounds to make. You just make them. It comes through you. You're channeling. And I've done a bit of channeling in the past. I haven't done any recently. And so I'm really interested in exploring that possibility. I can't do it here in this house because the walls are paper thin. But yeah, I'm rather looking forward to doing it in John and Lizzie's house tomorrow.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
Day after tomorrow.
I wish their neighbours the best of luck.
Yeah. Do you know John and Lizzie?
No, I don't, mate. No, never had the pleasure.
Right. Well, lovely couple. Lovely couple. Right. Well, we're over time. So thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, cheers everyone.
Don't forget
to tell your friends. Give us a like on YouTube.
Don't forget to like and hang on, I put a slide up there and it didn't come up.
It did briefly, then.
There you go. So please do, like and share and subscribe. Namaste.